Hi guys, welcome back to my podcast. I think my fun reading. Yeah, as usual, I wanna read article from Medium right now. So yeah, without further ado, here we go. So yeah, I wanna pick this one. Critical thinking is more important than ever. Here's how to get better at it. Or welcome to the internet. No one will be your guide. Critical thinking abilities matter more than ever. I teach critical thinking abilities to U.S. Air Force officers, and they had it. It is consistency one of the most universally panned classes in our curriculum. Why is this? Because they don't believe it will help them solve their daily problems. Yes, college educated professional military officers have not been trained to believe that the use of intellectual standard elements of reasoning and logic will help them in their daily work. They have been trained to believe that the information that will help them in their daily work exists solely in regulations, procedural manual, and the job experience. The concept of inference, deduction, and logic are foreign to them. Consequently, they deem the lesson on critical thinking to be a waste of time. Why? I often hear, do I need to learn this? If I don't know something, I just go ask somebody who does or check online for it. Why? I often hear, do I need to learn this? If I don't know something, I just go ask somebody who does or check online for info. What these intelligent, well-educated officers and large proportion of America fail to realize is that untested, unexamined information can be deadly. The only truly bad assumptions are ones you don't realize you are making. The only truly lateral biases are the ones you don't realize you have. And we are surrounded by literally unrealized biases. Here are three that are especially common in the internet age. See if you can think of any instance where you've seen this recently. Number one, authority bias. The tendency to attribute greater accuracy to the opinion of an authority figure unrelated to its content and be more influenced by that opinion. We give authority to all manner of people and organizations this day. And we rarely, if ever, stop to ask ourselves what sort of agenda or program they may be pursuing. Number two, confirmation bias. The tendency to search for, interpret, focus on, and remember information in a way that confirms one's preconception. You can, with almost no effort, find a blog post, podcast, new articles, or medium post that will say exactly the point you are trying to make. On the internet, there is somebody who shares your same opinion and has documented it for the world to see. Number three is bandwagon effect. Tendency to do or believe things because many other people do or believe the same. Many people have said everybody knows it is true that I've talked to a lot of people who think social media is particular in intentionally designed to produce the bandwagon effect. Fear of missing out or of being the last to know of something important or some new trend put out by influencer occupies more headfast and brain power for the average person today than at any time in world history. Like brain power for the average person today than at any time in the world history. Which is of these biases and a dozen of others beside them so few people. It is the fact that so few people seem to question their own assumptions or recognize their inherent biases. I'll reiterate, a bias is not inherently bad thing. It only becomes bad or harmful when it is unrecognized or untested. The problem of teaching critical thinking after about the third or fourth time I taught my class on critical thinking to my students, I began to realize why they were so turned off and uninterested. The way the material is presented in traditional critical thinking course is super academic and therefore seems totally non applicable to daily life outside of academia. Things like memorizing the list of the 8 elements of reasoning or learning the relationship between the intellectual standards seems totally distant from the problems facing us on daily basis. It seems like nothing more than a pointless mental exercise. But then I came across something in our book, which highly recommend called "What Best College Teachers Do." In this book, can be analyzed sort of simple, elegant, and most important, applicable methodology of teaching critical thinking skill to students, regardless of their background or particular field of study. The text that Ben introduced the explain simple version of Siri curriculum is actually a physics textbook from the late 1990s called Teaching Introductory Physics by Arnold Arons. In his dry, academic, high-level textbook on the fundamentals of physics, Arons almost an appendix to the text itself, lay out a model of how to teach critical thinking. Here are his steps, edited and adjusted for clarity by me. Number 1. Employ conscious questioning. Ask yourself the question, what do we know? How do we know? Why? Why do we accept or believe? What is the evidence for? These 4 questions should form the basis of any critical thinking exercise we engage in. Conscious questioning is the bedrock of seriability. Number 2, look for and acknowledge gaps in available information. Looking for the gaps is easy. Acknowledging them and working around them if necessary is much more difficult, especially in this age where the answer to virtually any question can be had with a few mouse clicks. We have lost our tolerance for uncertainty and ambiguity. But that doesn't mean those 2 things don't still exist. Number 3, understand the difference between understand the difference between observation and inference. Observation is established fact, and inference takes that fact and makes conjectures about it, but doesn't necessarily itself establish new or subsequent fact. This is one of the most frequently overlooked process in critical thinking. Number 4, understand the words are symbol for ideas, not ideas themselves. Jargon, industry-specific terminology is the easiest example of ignoring this principle. When you come to an idea that requires debate and critical thinking, you have to approach it from the point of view of shared experience and common terminology. Number 5, always probe for assumptions, especially the unarticulated ones. There are always assumptions within any line of reasoning. Rooting them out and understanding them, not necessarily debunking or defeating them, is foundational to critical thinking. Number 6, knowing when to draw inference and when not to. This assumes a familiarity with logic, and if then statements inference to probably one of the higher order mental process outlined in this list, but it is not an impossible standard. One of the biggest pitfalls of this process is not realizing when relevant variables have or have not been controlled. We think we may be studying a problem in control method vacuum, but that's almost never the case. Number 7, understanding hypothesis or its relationship to deductive reasoning. This goes back to what we said earlier about gaps in information. Sometimes we can fill in those gaps with some knowledge from other fields or other ideas. So long as we test our assumption, we don't have to have all information to make a good decision. Number 8, understand the difference between inductive and deductive reasoning. This just means understanding when a particular fact is used to generalize inductive and when a generalization is used to isolate and predict the particular fact, deductive. Number 9, developing intellectual self-reliance. This is simply maintaining intellectual humility and testing your own lines of reasoning before driving up sustained conclusions. Developing method cognitively. Elsewhere, I wrote about metacognition, the science of thinking about your thinking. That's all this bullet point refers to. The last one, like conclusions, I generally believe that if we are going to survive in this age of misinformation and alternate truth, we need to carefully enhance our critical thinking abilities. This above is just a start, but it is a good start. It lays out simple, actionable steps that we can take each and every day to question our own assumptions, thoughts, and ideas, as well as the ideas of others that we encounter. In an attempt to understand reality and ultimately make better, smarter decisions for ourselves. Okay, I think that's all for tonight. See you on next video. Goodbye.